This is the Ioniq 6 and this is the Volkswagen ID.7, and today I want to compare them a bit in every aspect that is important. And I know what you're gonna say, hey Chris, this is your ID.7, of course you're gonna like this car way more than the Ioniq 6. And it's true, I ordered the ID.7 because it seems to fit my needs the best, and luckily when it arrived and I'm driving it for 6-7 hours now, it really performs the way that I want it to. But it doesn't mean that I cannot appreciate a different car, and that I can't say if some other car is in some aspects better than my ID.7. That's fine, I'm okay with that. ID.7 is not perfect. But it also means just because I own this car doesn't mean I cannot say anything bad about this car. I try to keep my personal opinion out of this, but of course the things that I show are things that I like very much or that I dislike very much. This video is for you to form your own opinion about those two cars. Maybe I'm showing things that I like about the ID.7 and you say, I don't care about this. And the opposite, maybe I dislike something about the Ioniq 6 that you say, I don't mind about this. In the opposite, I think that's good. This video is supported by Tronity, a must-have for every Volkswagen, Tesla or Ford driver, but also for other EV drivers. With the Tronity app or the browser, you can always see the car status. You can see all your charging session, your charging curve, your ratio between AC and DC charging. You can see all of your trips, what was your average consumption, where did you go, how long was the trip, and you can have a 100% tax compliant driver's logbook. Tronity gives my viewers 25% off if you use the link in the description below. Like I said, I drove the ID.7 for around 6-7 weeks, and I drove this Ioniq 6 for 2 weeks now. It's a press car from Hyundai, Germany. Thank you very much, by the way. And let's start with driving. So, suspension on both cars is really good, it's comfortable. The ID.7 is a bit more on the comfort side. The difference is also then when you get the DCC in the ID.7, you can adjust the suspension more sporty or more comfort. You can't do that in the Ioniq 6, but the Ioniq 6 is still very comfortable to drive. There's no problem at all. In cornering, they're both really good. I drove the Ioniq 6 for a while, and I thought, wow, this cornering is way better than my car. And then at some point I drove the ID.7 again. I said, nah, it's the same. So even though they're bigger cars, longer cars, they're both really good with cornering. Power, the ID.7 has 60 horsepower more, and you feel that. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, the ID.7 is almost a second faster. And you feel it with acceleration. At higher speeds, 130, you don't feel the difference too much, so this is fine. Noise level in the car, they're both really quiet. Again, the ID.7 is a bit more leaning towards more comfort, and I have the double glass in the front side windows, and I noticed that especially under 100 kilometers an hour. At 130, the difference is not that big. The e-sound, the pedestrian warning sound, where the ID.7 with the standard e-sound, when you drive off, you can barely hear it. I can hear it outside when my wife is driving by or something, but you cannot hear it inside. Where in the Hyundai, or the Hyundai, it feels more like they want you to hear it. So it feels like the speakers inside are giving you a sound. And the difference is also when you're standing, you can hear a constant sound in the Ioniq where you don't hear anything in the ID.7. Regenerative braking also couldn't be any more different. The Id.7 doesn't have very strong regen, and you only can adjust it. Either you drive in D with no regen at all, or with automatic regen, and then with B with the strongest regen, which is not very strong. No one pedal driving there at all. In the Ioniq you have so many levels. You have auto regen, you have no regen, then level 1, 2, 3, and then you have I pedal where you have the strongest regen that also brings you to a dead stop. That's so awesome. I haven't tested the light in my Id.7 that much, and I haven't filmed anything with the Ioniq 6. They're very similar. They both have the high beam assist where the car is in front of you coming towards you. High beams stay on, but just this where the car is being turned off, and it works really well on both cars. Overall, I feel like the Ioniq 6 has a bit of a darker light, but it's not a big deal. Wiping is very interesting, where the Ioniq 6 has 5 different levels of auto rain sensor. The Id.7 only has 2, and I'm not a big fan of the wipers of the Id.7. My Id.3 was way better when it comes to this, but I also felt that in the Ioniq 6 that sometimes on level 3 it was not wiping enough, and then level 4 it was wiping too much, so it was okay. When it comes to spraying the windshield, Ioniq 6 is amazing because you spray it, it wipes, and when you stop spraying it only wipes one more time, and that's it. And when you wipe in the Id.7, even when it's just a tiny bit, it wipes like 3-4 times, and you're like, stop, it's gonna get dirty again when you wipe again, and that's a problem. I hate that. It's way better in this car. Auto hold is very interesting. They both have it, of course. In the Id.7, when you get out of auto hold, so you stand at a light and then you want to drive, it turns off and you drive on more comfortably. In the Ioniq 6 it's always a bit of a the parking brake is off and now you're driving. And I had that in the Id.3, for example, as well. In the Id.7 this is done really well. Climate is a very important thing to me. I want to know how fast does it heat up, how is the seat heater, how can you preheat the car, can you keep the climate on when you get out of the car, all of these things. And Ioniq 6 and Id.7 are a bit different. They both heat up very well. The Ioniq heats up faster. I mean, this has a heat pump. I don't have a heat pump. I don't know if it's because of that, but when I get into a cold Ioniq and I turn it on, it heats up very, very fast, and that's awesome. I can preheat both cars with the app. In the Ioniq, the app reacts that it's preheating faster. Here, it's in the Id.7, it starts very fast, but I don't get an answer from the car that it's really preheating for 40-50 seconds, where it takes in the Ioniq maybe 10 seconds to tell me, hey, I'm preheating. When I do that with the app, Ioniq only preheats for 15 minutes, then it stops. The Id.7 does it for 30 minutes. In the Id.7 I have a keep climate on button, so if I get out of the car I can press a button, keep climate on, and as my climate was, I get out, I can lock the car, and it keeps the climate like it was for 30 minutes. And then with the app I can start it again if I want to. So if I have dogs, kids, or anyone in the car, they're still warm or cold in the summer. In the Ioniq 6 I don't have that. I have a start the engine button on the remote, and I tried that, and it starts the engine, and then I can do the parking with driving, but the climate doesn't turn on. It didn't do that. And I can get out and preheat with the app, or continue heating with the app, but only for 15 minutes, and then I have to do it again. That's a bit annoying. Scheduled preheating is something different. This is where I'm very disappointed with the Ioniq 6. Not everyone has a charging station at home, and not everyone is charging every day. Id.7 doesn't matter if you're plugged in or not. When you have scheduled preheating, it will preheat the car at the time that you set. The Ioniq 6 only does scheduled preheating when the car is plugged in. When it's not plugged in, there's no preheating. That's annoying, and it was in other cars of the Hyundai Kia group, but the new Hyundai Kona, for example, already can do that. The heating control in both cars is really nice. In the Id.7 it's on the screen, and you can adjust a few things, and you can customize things. In the Ioniq, you have it also as an extra button thing, and you don't have every option down there that I would like. For example, seat heating, where in old Hyundais and Kias, especially EV6, you have had all the buttons here. You can turn on preheat, turn on the seat heating or steering wheel heating. Here now it's in the infotainment system, in the menu. There's no real button, and it's especially annoying when you get into the car and you start the car and the infotainment system needs a bit to start up, and then till you can get to it, a bit laggy in the beginning, and then you can finally turn the seat heating on. That's a bit annoying. And what's also annoying is every time you turn off the car and turn it back on, when you just get out for a second, seat heating is off again. You have to get in and do the thing again. What the Ioniq does very well is when it comes to saving energy for heating or cooling is the driver only. It really only heats up the area where the driver is sitting, and it uses way less energy. Id.7 has a similar function when you're just alone in the car. All the other rear and the passenger is in eco, but the power difference that it takes out of heating is not that different. Cockpit screen and infotainment screen couldn't be any more different. Id.7 has a gigantic 15-inch infotainment screen, but the cockpit screen is really tiny and doesn't show a lot of information. The focus is more on the head-up display, which is big, very bright, very sharp, and shows a lot of information. You have the AR, augmented reality part, where it shows you arrows where to go. It shows you what car is the distance for your cruise control. It shows you if your travel assist is on. It shows you when your lane assist, when you're too close to a road, and all of this, it's really done. Or when you have to switch a lane on the highway, it shows where to go, and all of this, it's really awesome. But the cockpit doesn't show not a lot of things. In the head-up display, you have an average consumption, you have a state of charge, your range, and like I said, your navigation in there, your speed, of course, your traffic sign recognition, all of this. But you don't have blind spot warning, for example, that you have in the Ioniq 6 in the head-up display. The head-up display is really good, again sharp and bright, but except for a few information, you don't have too much. So yes, it shows you that you have to go right and what distance, and that's fine, but you don't have any augmented reality part, but that's really okay, doesn't need that. The display though on your cockpit is way bigger and shows every information that you can just ask for. Your trip meter, you have your range, how much power are you using, what the speed, of course. There's so much in there. There's arrow messages if you need that. Your tire pressure in the number, where Id.7 doesn't show you the tire pressure. It just shows you when the tire pressure is very different than what you had before, but not a number. But I also noticed I had a tire pressure warning in the Ioniq 6. The two right side had 0.3 bars, not enough air in there, but the cockpit showed me 2.4 bars on all wheels, but the two right ones, it showed me a warning. But it wasn't correct. There was way less on the right than it was on the left, but it didn't show the right number. But it's fine, it showed me a warning, and that was good. And like I said, there's so much information in there that's awesome. What I don't like about the Ioniq 6 is the trip data. In the Id.7, I have the same trips in both, by the way. I have from start, charging since last charge, and a long distance, so that it stays there forever until you reset. But for whatever reason, in the Ioniq 6 they changed it. It resets the trip when you just turn off the car from start, and it's really annoying when you're on a long distance trip and you go out to pee, when you get something to eat, for when you're just out of the car for 10 seconds and you turn it off. The since start trip is reset. The since charging resets every time you charge, so you're depending on the long distance trip for everything, and I find that annoying. In the Id.7 it resets the since start trip only when the car is parked for 4 hours. Since charging, of course, with charging in a long distance, you do yourself. And I find them way better because I can go somewhere, and even though I stop for a bit, maybe even eat, I go on, and it still saves me for this whole day trip. It was this. When I go back on the next day, I have in the full trip, the long trip, I have the whole data, and I had the trip there and I had the trip back extra. I find it better. That's a bit annoying here. When it comes to an infotainment screen, 15-inch, like I said, and you have everything in there. Looks way better, is very sharp, shows a lot of detail. Since it's so big, the buttons don't have to be small, and it shows more information. Where in the Ioniq 6 it's smaller, the whole system is a bit laggy, especially in the first 10 minutes that you drive, and it seems like it's just loading stuff that you think you need, and when you go into something you have to wait. There it is, and then you have to go to this. There it is. But if the standard thing, if you have pressed it once, then it's a bit faster. But overall, it's a bit laggy. I'm not the biggest fan of it, especially since I have to go, like I said, seat heating and other things that will come to in a second. It still shows a lot of stuff. Navigation is okay, not amazing in the Ioniq 6. In the Id.7 navigation is pretty good, the same as the route planner and everything. Apps. In the Id.7 I can install over the App Store Spotify, but that's the only app right now that you can do, and it's not working too well. It's working okay, but it crashed on me a few times when it doesn't have perfect internet connection. It's a bit weird since it fades into a song, so you lose the first half second, and then it starts playing right away when you go into the app. Not that you don't have to press start. At the Ioniq 6 you don't have any extra apps. You cannot install anything, it's just there as you get it, but it's also fine, you have anything you need. Both have Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. In the Id.7 you can do that wirelessly as well. In the Ioniq 6 I haven't found anything. I thought I saw something where they said that wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay is coming. Maybe it's in there and I haven't found it, or it will come soon, that's fine. Both get over-the-air updates. I don't know how it will work with the Id.7. In my Id.3 I got in 3 years 2 over-the-air updates, and it wasn't a smooth experience. I don't know how it is with the Ioniq 6 over-the-air updates, how they work, if it's fine and what you get and stuff like this, but both are ready for that. Long distance driving. This is very good in both cars because they have a lower consumption than SUVs. They have very good charging, they have good battery capacity. They're amazing for this. There's a big difference though. Ioniq 6 has an 800 volt battery system. It charges amazing. This car, when you plug it in, at the beginning you don't get amazing charging power, but then it goes up to 200 to above 230 kilowatt, and then gradually goes down. It's an amazing charging curve, 10 to 80% in 18 minutes. You have a battery heater that you can use when you navigate to a charger. Then it will preheat the battery, so you get amazing charging power. And you cannot do it manually, but it does it then automatically when you navigate. It also, what it does, which is amazing, when you plug in at a higher state of charge, 50%, you can still get 200 kilowatt. It's amazing when it comes to charging. In the winter, when the battery is cold, it's horrible. I can just say it like this. You get 60-70 kilowatt. It's preheating the battery while charging, and then at some point you get 130. Maybe when you're on a very low state of charge you get 200 kilowatt. It's not amazing. That's why you use this preheating while navigating to a charger. But there is something very important that I noticed. So in the navigation, when you just search for Ionity, for example, which I did 3 times when I tested this car when it comes to range test, and I did a comparison drive to the Id.7. I navigated to Ionity, I searched for Ionity, it found the Ionity's charging station that I want to use, navigated to it, it didn't preheat the battery because you have to use point of interest charging stations. In the Id.7 I get a peak of 192 kilowatt, but important, they have to plug in at under 15%. If you plug in at 18%, you don't get a peak charging power. You have a charging curve when you start, like I said, under 15%, but it's not the same charging curve when you plug in at a higher state of charge. That's annoying. So when you want to arrive at when you do fast driving, when you want to get to your long distance trip destination fast, you have to arrive with under 15%. Otherwise your charging is not amazing. If you have time, that's fine. But when you plug in, for example, at 30%, you maybe get 150 kilowatt, not the same 190. That's bad and that's not amazing, but that's how the battery is done. The good thing is you can do battery preheating with navigating to a charger, and when you do that, when you type in Ionity, for example, it shows you an address, but it also shows you the Ionity symbol, and then when you click on that, it tells you I'm preheating, navigating to this, and fine. And the other good thing is, which is amazing in the Id.7 and which is new with ID Software 4.0, is that there's a special window that you click, and then you see your battery temperature. It doesn't show a number, but you can see a bar and what is the highest, what is the lowest, and where you are. And then it shows you right now at this state of charge, with this temperature, you get this and this kilowatt of DC charging. You can preheat. There's a button that you can press, and it tells you it will preheat for whatever time, 30 minutes, and then you can have a different power at this because you're preheating the battery, and that's awesome. You can do it with a button. I like it, and the navigating I did that works also really well. In the Ioniq 6 I did it today to a different charger, and it did it with around 5 kilowatt. It did it very well. It showed me a message, and it showed in the battery symbol a little heating element. When it comes to consumption, I think that the Ioniq 6 is a tiny bit better when it comes to consumption. I did a comparison, but the Ioniq 6 had a few disadvantages that I mentioned in the video. Even though it has a heat pump, I think in the summer, I hope I can redo this test in the summer, and I think that the Ioniq 6 is a tiny bit better. I've seen that in other tests as well, where you get more range out of the 74 usable energy than the 77 kilowatt hour usable energy of the Id.7. So far, I have never got more out of this battery than 74 kilowatt hours. Out of this, I got even 76, which is a lot and very interesting. When you do a long distance trip and you need chargers in your navigation, Id.7 will show you with the new software. First of all, it calculates everything with the temperature, outside temperature, elevation change, that you drive on the highway, that you are maybe a faster driver, slower driver, and also if you have the heat on and stuff like this. So this is calculated very well. I liked it a lot. So a better route planner is not too far off than what the Id.7 does. You can also select chargers, so when it selects it itself, you can change those chargers. But this so far doesn't work very well, and you cannot adjust that maybe you want more stalls or just chargers like this, not chargers here. If you want a special brand that you want to charge it doesn't work yet. In the Ioniq 6, it adds the charger also automatically, but it does not do it very well. There's not a lot of adjustment. Cruise control and self-steering. In the Id.7, cruise control is amazing. It doesn't matter if it's on a country road or on a highway. It keeps the distance very well, and you can adjust how it accelerates when there is a speed change. You can also set it that when there's that it sets the speed automatically to the speed limit that there is, but it does it on the exact number, not above or underneath if you want that. But it holds the speed very well, and the distance, it feels very safe. Self-steering works amazing. It's very smooth on the country and the highway, and you don't have to steer against it. You just hold it, and it doesn't have to be a very hard grip, so it notices that you're there. When it comes to lane change, so auto lane change on the highway, or if you do it yourself, it does it a bit weird. So it goes out a bit fast and then also back a bit fast. And if you don't use the auto lane change, if you just tap and it turns off the self-steering, and then you get to the next lane and it notices you are in the lane again, it just does a little bit of this, because you're not fully back to you do it a bit slowly, you're not fully back to the next lane, and then it notices, you're in the lane, I have to keep you in the middle. And it does it in an uncomfortable way that I don't like at all. Ioniq 6, cruise control is awesome. You have 4 distance. The thing is, you can only switch through the distances where in the so from 4 to 1, and then it goes back to 4. In the Id.7 I can do up or down, so if I'm in distance 2 I can go to 3 or distance 1. But here it always does it in the same direction, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4. That's sometimes a bit annoying, and it reacts a bit fast if you are in normal drive mode. If you are in eco mode, it does it a bit better. But overall, the adjustment with speed is done a bit more uncomfortable in the Ioniq 6. Self-steering on the highway is awesome. On the country road, it's a bit doing this, adjusting tiny adjustments all the time, and that can be a bit annoying. It recognizes your touch also as well without having to steer. That's awesome. You need a bit more grip here, but it's not a big difference. When it comes to auto lane change, Ioniq 6 is king. How it changes automatically a lane on the highway is exactly like I would do it when I don't have anything on. It waits 1-2 seconds till it does it, but then it does it in a smooth way, not too fast, and there's no weird steering. There's whoop and back. The same when you don't use it, and when you just tap it and you go out yourself, and when it turns back on, there's no weird steering, anything, it just does it. In the ID.7, when you have the auto lane change on and you don't want to use it, you just steer, it sometimes vibrates and then you're steering against it, and you get error message here too. Well, when it thinks you want to do it but then you steer yourself, you get a warning message, interrupted and stuff like this. But overall, the lane change is 10 times better in the Ioniq 6. I love it. This is not good in the ID.7. Not a fan. And the last point is the daily use. If we use these cars to go to work every day, 20-30 kilometers, and then drive home in the evening, how is that? The app, because this is something, maybe you preheat the car, maybe you're charging, you want to see how it's doing, is very different. In the ID.7 you cannot use too much, but you see the charging power, for example, and you can see the range in a state of charge very fast. It works okay. It might take a bit if you have something. In the Ioniq 6 it's pretty fast. It doesn't show you the power that you're charging at, but it shows you the time to the charge limit that you have done. You can see trips in there, you can see if the charge port is open, if the car is unlocked. You get a warning if you don't lock your car, and you can lock the car with the app. ID.7 you don't get a warning, you can see that it's not locked, but you don't get a warning, and you cannot lock it with the app. That's just stupid, I hate that. Here you can just do it. So if I leave it unlocked, I go somewhere else and oh, it's locked, I got a warning, I lock it, it's fine. I can see if the charge port is open or closed, like I said, the trunk and everything. That's awesome. Like I said, I can see trip data in there. I see my drives, my top speed on that drive, how many kilometers I drove, how long it took, all of this. That's really awesome. So much information, how many kilowatt hours I used in that month. Awesome. I love the app. The only annoying part is that every time you want to send something, you have to put in either a pin or you use your fingerprint sensor for that, and then this is valid for 10 minutes. And when you send something and then you want to send something else and you didn't get a reply from the car, it tells you, wait, you have to wait till the reply comes back, then we can do something else. So if you change the charge limit and then you want to preheat the car, you have to wait till this is done. A backup camera. Both backup cameras are not amazing, especially when it's raining or when just the road is wet. The rear windows don't need wipers, by the way. They really both are great when it comes to this. They can be totally wet. You drive at 80 kilometers an hour and they're both free. Ice you can just do with the heating up the heating element in both. It works well. But those backup cameras on both cars, they get wet. The ID.7 has a washer that helps a bit, but Ioniq 6 doesn't have that. But again, it's not amazing when it's wet. Both are horrible. The same with the dark. It's not great. The 360-degree camera on both is very similar. Both work really well. They beep a bit and then you see it. In the ID.7, it turns on automatically when I go forward into something. I have to press something. Maybe there's somewhere where I can adjust it that it does it automatically. So in the ID.7 it does it automatically. In the Ioniq 6 it doesn't do that. Trunk space, Ioniq 6 has less trunk space than the Id.7. It's overall a bit of a smaller car. You have a button on each to open it. To get stuff in, it's a bit easier in the Ioniq 6 because it's not so deep. Id.7 is a very deep trunk. Here you have a frunk, depending on if you have all-wheel drive or just rear-wheel drive, it's smaller in the all-wheel drive. Here you cannot have a frunk, it doesn't matter what car you get. But now we get to the most important. This is when you get into the car, what you do to start driving and be comfortable. This is very important to me. Again, I don't know about you. In the Ioniq 6, I sit in the car, I have to press the start-stop button to have ignition on and to be able to put in a gear. When I do that and I don't have the seatbelt on, it will beep 5 times at me. If I have the seatbelt on, it just does a welcome chime, and there's even a welcome melody that you can turn off, but still there's a chime. Infotainment system starts, you get this, hey, drive safe, you have to confirm this, sometimes you have to wait, sometimes it's just there right away. Like I said, the infotainment system is a bit laggy. When you want to start driving, there are 2 things that by EU regulation have to be on both cars, by the way, but they manage it in a completely different way. First is lane assist. In the Ioniq 6, you just press the self-steering button more than 2-3 seconds, it turns that off. That's awesome. You don't have to go into a menu, it just does that. The second is the new, since 2023, speed limit warning. So both cars have that. If you have a speed limit, let's say 30 kilometers an hour, and you drive 31 for more than a few seconds, it will beep at you. In the Ioniq 6, that's annoying because it's 4 times boom, 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 boom. Id.7 does that too, but it's more of an easier melody thing. Still annoying. What is more annoying in the Ioniq 6 is that it also gives you a beep every time the speed limit changes. Id.7 doesn't do that automatically. You can set it that way, but on every start it sets it to the standard setting, and it doesn't do that. Here every time, so when you're on the highway it's 120, then 100 and then 80. Each time there's a beep. If I have more beeps for you when you're driving. So and to turn that off, you have to go into assist system, a speed limit, and then off. And this is also something that's horrible in the Ioniq 6. I'm sorry. You have 3 settings for your speed limit warning. You have it set the cruise control to the speed limit that it recognizes, normal speed limit warning that's always on, like I just said, or off. And off also means it doesn't recognize speed limits. So if you turn that off, you also don't see, hey, it's 100 here. It's just off. The whole system is off. In the Id.7, I get in, press assist, turn lane assist off, turn speed limit warning off. Only the warning is off. I still have, hey, here's 120, here's 100. I can see that in the infotainment system and in the head-up display in the cockpit. And if I want the cruise control to adjust to the speed that it sees, it can also turn that on individually. It has nothing to do with the speed limit warning. 10 times better. I'm sorry. Next beeps. Regen. When you get into the car, I love a regen level here in the Ioniq 6 iPedal. It's one pedal driving, it's awesome. Every time you get into the car, iPedal has to be off. The same if you want to drive an regen level 0, no regen at all. It doesn't allow that. You will be in regen level 1. Every time I start, I'm in level 3. So not full one pedal driving, which is still better than the Id.7, but I would love that iPedal. And if I turn iPedal on, I get a beep. If I turn iPedal off, I get a beep. If I am in iPedal and I turn cruise control on, it beeps because it turns iPedal off. When I pause cruise control, it beeps again because it turns iPedal back on. That is annoying. Next is when you're charging and it shows you how much time is left to your desired charging limit and what the charging power is. It beeps. Why? Can you just show me the charging power without beeping? I don't get it. When you stop the car, you can see that I'm not a fan of beeping, I'm sorry. When you stop the car and you press park, that it automatically turns on the parking brake. It beeps and gives you a warning that it turned the parking brake on. The good thing is you can avoid that with just turning off the ignition. It will go into park and put the parking brake on all automatically without that beeping. That's nice. But overall, to have a start-stop button is really annoying. The only good thing I have with this is when I preheat in the morning, like I said, after 15 minutes it turns off the preheating. It doesn't matter if you're at the car or not. When you say please preheat the car, it does it for 15 minutes and turns it off. And when I get to the car and turn ignition on, turn the heat on, seat heat and everything, I can leave the ignition on. When I close the door, it beeps at me for 5 seconds, hey, you have the ignition on, which I get, but the heat continues. I can put in the dogs when we go to work and it's still heating. Id.7 is a bit different. Id.7, like I said, can preheat even if it's not plugged in. I don't have to do it with the app, but even if I do it with the app, it's for 30 minutes. If I preheat with scheduled preheating, even when the time that I want to leave is already reached, it continues preheating for a bit, I think 10 minutes or 15 minutes or so. I don't have a start-stop button. I have it, but we don't have to use it. You get into the car, press the brake, ignition is on, you put it into gear and drive. But if you want regen, you have to do the gear change twice, so you're in B. Regen overall is not as strong, like I said. You don't get any beeps. You get a little chime, boom, when you turn the car into gear. That's annoying. Also, I don't need it. There's a goodbye sound, but you can turn it off. That's awesome. When you put it into reverse, you get a little beep, but it's a quiet one. In my ID3, that was extremely loud, so this is better. And then you just drive, and like I said, lane assist and speed limit turn off, so speed warning, you just go into assist, boop, boop, off, and you go. It's, sorry, but as a daily driver, it's 10 times better. This is so annoying with the beeping, it annoyed the crap out of me. I don't know why they have to beep at everything. The same with the trunk. When I open the trunk here, there's no beeping. When I close the trunk here, there's no beeping. When I open or close the trunk inside the car, there's beeping every time for opening and closing, because warning if there is someone. In the Ioniq 6, closing the trunk, it beeps every time. It doesn't matter if I'm here or if I'm in the car. Opening, it never beeps. Something that's awesome in the Ioniq 6 that you cannot have in the Id.7 is that you have vehicle to load. In the car we have a socket inside, 250 volt, 16 amps, so 3500 watt, and you can have the adapter that you plug in here into your charge port that you can outside have 3500 watt. Id.7 doesn't support that. Id.7 can have vehicle to home when you have a special charger at home that supports that. You cannot just do it with anything you have at home. Right now I think it's just one charging system, and Volkswagen will deliver another one, so maybe two, and it's not cheap. And then you can use the battery of the car to power the house or something like this. But in the Ioniq 6 with the vehicle to load, that if you need that, that's awesome. I don't care about that, I don't need it, but if it's awesome. So if you go camping, if you need something to power inside that has 230 volt, awesome. If you want to follow me on Instagram, BatteryLife1, and if you want to support the channel, there's a Patreon link in the description below, and there's also channel membership here on YouTube. So as you could hear, what a surprise, I preferred my own Id.7, but again, this video is not about what I like more. I try to give you points that you can make your own decision. Don't take my opinion, don't take my word for it. Watch many videos about both cars, try them out for yourself so you can make your own opinion. That's way more important. Stuff that is important to me maybe you don't consider at all, and maybe there's stuff for you that's very important that I don't care. That's just how it should be, and I'm just trying to give you some points and give you information that what I have noticed, negative and positive of each car. But that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day and take care. Bye.